We're Group 11, and our topic is the melting of glaciers. What exactly are glaciers, may ask? Glaciers are defined as a slowly moving mass or river of ice formed by the accumulation and compaction of snow on mountains or near the poles. The glaciers that exist today are remnants of our last ice age that occurred on Earth. What makes them unique is their ability to move, in which they flow like very slow rivers. They occupy about 10% of the world's total land area, with most being located in polar regions such as Antarctica, Greenland, and the Canadian Arctic. Glaciers are important to our environment as they provide habitat to our biosphere and play an important role in temperature regulation here on Earth. Ice is a purifier in our environment, absorbing chemicals such as pesticides that exist in our atmosphere and our environment, as well as trapping ancient viruses and bacteria that become inactive in colder conditions. Recently, glaciers have been melting around the world at an alarming rate, which has been observed by climate change experts and referred to as one of the most important indicators that climate change is occurring and that it could be potentially devastating to our planet. You're probably wondering how this change is measured. Here's how. Glaciers gain mass through snowfall and lose mass through melting and submission, or when water evaporates directly from solid ice. Glaciers that terminate in a lake or in the ocean also lose mass through iceberg calving. To see if a glacier is growing or shrinking, glaciologists check the conditions of snow and ice at several locations on the glacier at the end of the melt season. The scientists check snow levels against stakes they've inserted in the glacier, dig snow pits in the surface to examine the sequence of seasonal layers, and insert long poles into the glacier to probe characteristics of the snow and ice. Some further evidence for melting glaciers. According to climate.gov, in 2018 was the 39th year in a row of mass loss of glaciers. The future looks to hold more of the same as climate change continues to adversely affect glaciers. Let's look at a particular case for an example. A recent study documented by National Geographic looked at the changes that have occurred in Glacier Park, Montana over the past century. An official count that took place in 1910 noted that there were 150 glaciers with enormous size to them. In 2017, another count, the park only had 30 glaciers, and most of the remaining were reduced to about one-third of their original size. This is a drastic change in a relatively short amount of time. This is direct evidence that climate is changing and at an alarming rate. The rate is what is really scary to the scientific community. Another example is Mount Kilimanjaro, which has experienced an 80% reduction in their famed snows since 1912. Data from the NASA GRACE satellite shows that the land ice sheets in both Antarctica and Greenland have been losing mass since 2002, with both seeing a substantial acceleration of ice mass loss since 2009. Climate.gov notes that melting mountain glaciers have accelerated since 2000. Global Ice Viewer on NASA's site, pictured here, shows the Alps of Matterhorn and Alps of Doldenhorn and their ice accumulation over time. Spring snow ice is disappearing earlier in the year than it did in the past, with most rapid declines in snow-covered area occurring in June. Total area covered by snow in the northern hemisphere during March and April has also shrunk over time.
The effects of melting glaciers include shortage of fresh water, albedo reduction, disappearance of coral reefs, and disturbances of weather patterns. The shortage of fresh water includes that our world is composed of 97% of seawater, 3% fresh water, with 75% of fresh water being found in glacial ice. As a result of our changing climate, the fresh water that is found in our glaciers will be lost in our oceans and will become non-potable. Albedo reduction is another factor that will be affected. As our climate continues to change and our glaciers and ice sheets continue to melt, as a result, the albedo of Earth will lower in areas where it was once high and covered with large amounts of ice. Snow and ice can reflect up to 95% of incoming radiation from the sun, while water reflects only about 10% of the radiation. The melting of glacial ice will result in about an 85% decrease of reflectivity, therefore causing more incoming radiation to be absorbed by our Earth therefore resulting in the warming of both our oceans and land areas around the world. Coral reefs shelter approximately 1/4 of all animal species in our seas and help regulate oxygen and carbon dioxide levels. As ice sheets continue to melt and contribute to rising sea levels, the shallow waters where these reefs thrive and synthesize sunlight will be found under too much water to survive. This will essentially result in a domino effect, as the death of coral reefs will affect the fish populations and other creatures that use the reefs as shelter, and the affected sea population will cause a shortage of food for us humans. Disturbances of weather patterns will also be affected, as our Earth's weather is influenced by and controlled by sea currents. The warming of ocean waters and the rate at which these ice sheets are melting, there will be a reverse motion of sea currents that will influence an increase of storms and hurricanes seen around the world in areas where they have never been observed before. You may ask, what can we do to reduce glacial melting? Glaciers melt naturally, but have been doing so over recent years at an unnatural, rapid rate. Glaciers are currently melting at a faster rate than can be replenished, and the best and only way to counteract this phenomenon is to slow the process of global warming. And to slow the process of global warming, we could transition to renewable energy sources such as solar panels that can trap incoming solar radiation and convert it into energy, the utilization of wind turbines that use kinetic energy derived from the wind to create power. Geothermal energy is another factor that could be helpful, as it uses heat from within the earth, and the usage of electric cars will also be a great factor going into the future. Us individuals can recycle, save gas and carpool, grow gardens and plant trees, use energy in a wise manner, and inform and educate others about the issue going on at the moment.